I remember last summer, if you watched the Senate floor, one after another would come on and hammer President Biden and his administration over rising costs, which obviously throughout the country's history has been a top key issue for voters, especially as we saw in the midterms. Obviously, that changed once Roe v. Wade was overturned. But I do now want to pivot to some of the positives of President Biden's economic policies. What are you seeing?
Some things are funny, especially with related to rate hikes and also just, how much of a wrench COVID threw into a lot of, a lot of our assumptions about the economy. But the jobs market has definitely been really, really strong, and that's kind of been something that Biden has has really held on to. He's said in a speech last year, it's the strongest job market in 80 years. And, he is probably mostly right in that. So unemployment was down to a 54-year low earlier this year. And wage growth has been pretty steady. So that's, pretty great news for the average American of if you have more people have jobs, more people have well-paying jobs. The problem is that wage growth has not been as fast as inflation growth. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has specifically looked at that too, and it's counterintuitive. Obviously it's a good thing for people to be making more people to be employed. But when prices are going up faster than wages are going up, that's not a good thing. So it's trying to rein things in. So yes, Mark Sandy also had pretty positive things to say about the job creation that the American Rescue Plan had, and the CHIPS Act, helping with American manufacturing. So yeah, that's definitely, it's definitely a feather in Biden's cap, of how the jobs market has been. But we're going to almost definitely need to see or at least what the stock market wants to see is for the unemployment rate to bump up more, and inflation to continue to moderate. And yeah, so it's very weird, because now what the Fed and investors are really looking for is for wages to cool, unemployment to rise. But that's been a positive thing for Biden to look at, of that things have been resilient.
I do want to talk about that. President Biden has touted job growth in his last 2 years as president, but we've seen headlines of massive layoffs. Are the tides kind of turning here?
So yeah, it's interesting with with the layoffs, because it's really weird if you look at it and it's okay. Like, you're seeing the biggest, trillion-dollar company. Microsoft, Amazon, Google have all had, I think each of them has had like 10,000 plus layoffs. So yeah, it's really weird of when you see all these headlines, and we've seen. This is a small segment of the economy, but we've seen a lot of, well, high profile media layoffs, but also just at a lot of different organizations. So yeah, we're seeing that contraction, but we haven't really seen that much. The unemployment rate has, bumped up a little bit from, I think went from 3.2% early this year to now it's up at 3.5%. So yeah, we've seen some, but the economy continues to add jobs. We're not losing jobs. So there's definitely still a pretty strong appetite for things. I think we've also seen, and this is pretty subjective, but I think a lot of the layoffs too have been from, pretty strategic, and from probably roles that could be reorganized, especially at the large tech companies. We've seen, throwing in those three companies I mentioned before, throwing in Facebook there too, but those four companies have their stocks have performed really, really well over the last several months as layoffs have been announced. So I think it's probably helping things run a little more efficiently. And again, like I think a huge percentage of these layoffs have been in high growth tech sectors. I mean, we haven't seen like these, especially except for some exceptions, but it's not like we've seen, huge layoffs at kind of the more um, you know, the the less sensitive to macroeconomic conditions companies. And we've seen those companies still perform pretty well. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to continue to see higher unemployment, and still plenty of headlines about major layoffs. But I don't think it's going to be, despite all the headlines, it's not like we're gonna all of a sudden get to a point of like, oh my God, the unemployment rate spiking to 8-10%, like it did in the Great Recession 15 years ago, and then in the beginning of COVID, but that's, pretty anomalous.